Kieran Warwick. How's it going, man?
Hey, Scoriox, how are you, man?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. You've got a lot going on in your own personal life. Your partner's pregnant, I believe. You revealed on Twitter and all the rest of it. And so, congratulations for that. Congratulations on the wedding. And I hope you've had a bit of a break over Christmas. So, yeah, glad to hear it all.
Yeah, man, it's certainly exciting times for our family over here, and yeah, exciting because I think the due date is going to be pretty close to when we launch everything. So we'll see how we go on both accounts, right?
Yeah, so that your life is going to get even more hectic. So that should be interesting. But let's jump into the very first thing we want to talk about, and that is obviously going to be the roadmap. Now, I should tell the audience really quickly, even though this is the updated roadmap in 2025, it says Illuvium Arena Mobile. Kieran, in your announcement, you did say you're still expecting or hoping for Q1 of 2024 for the open beta to launch. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so we've decided to, given I would say market conditions, how long things have already been delayed. We came together as a group and we all decided that from the internal team's perspective that we should uh, go live as soon as possible. We've obviously got Arena in a really good state. The Overworld is in a good state as well. And Illuvium Zero, similar thing there. We've got thousands of people that play Zero all the time. And so all of the games work and the core gameplay loops are there. And so we've decided instead of us building any new features. I don't want people to think that we're just tools down and what you see now is what you get. But we've decided that there won't be any new features that we try and cram in that delay the launch of public beta any further. And so it might be that we get a whole bunch of new features into Overworld, which we've been working on for a long time. And it might be that Illuvium Zero gets an uplift. It might be that Arena gets a whole bunch of balance patches and quality of life improvements and all of that kind of stuff. But what we're saying is none of it can hinder the public beta launch. And that is solely reliant now on the IMX, the account integration, and getting that sorted, and the entire blockchain integration. Once we get those two things, we're going live, right? And obviously, it is still in beta, and things will improve. People can see how quickly our games improve and how much how good we are at developing. We've had 3 games simultaneously being built, and yes, there's been delay, but if you really, really look underneath the hood, there's been some pretty incredible stuff that's been built.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited for, especially for 2024 with Illuvium. And I never really, although it seems obvious now that you've said it, I never really thought about it that way. But I'm glad that the team is thinking around this way and just like get it out. And we even saw what happened with Big Time is that when the team told all the big time players, look, there's going to be no more resets, or at least a lot less resets, then a lot of people came into the ecosystem and just started playing the game because they wanted to, right? And so I definitely think that's going to be a net win for Illuvium when we get to that stage. So the next thing I'll talk about is, I know this is a big question that comes up really often. Can you update us on the mobile port discussion? You think you're going to build it in-house? Do you have any more information from if third parties could build it? How long it might take?
So would have been a year ago. We got a proof of concept done from an external team, and we weren't massively happy with it, to be completely honest. And so we decided that when we build or when we build out the port, it's definitely going to be done in-house. Obviously, things can change, but I would say it's a pretty good chance that we're going to do that internally. It's not something that we've started on, but we understand that it's of extreme importance. Being able to market ourselves to that mobile friendly audience is definitely critical. I think that's a big reason that we see and have seen so much playtime in Illuvium Zero. Is it's just so accessible to people. Just pop open the game, start doing a few things, and that's been a very, very steady process. So porting over to mobile for Arena is definitely up there in our list.
Yeah, I'm personally not a big mobile guy, but I definitely think it'd be advantageous. And even now, I'm spending all the free time I have playing Arena, trying to rank up or at least improve at the game. So I definitely think I would be playing a lot more if it was on mobile. So the next thing is, we know there's been discussion around rewards for Arena. You yourself and many others have talked about that. But Johnny and I think even Nick have talked about rewards for Illuvium Zero. What sort of rewards are we talking about? Are they large quantities similar to Beyond, or like, how might it even be distributed, especially for Illuvium Zero?
So there's not going to be, as far as I know, Johnny hasn't spoken to me about any internal leaderboards like we're proposing for Arena. The proposal that we put forward is actually around more so a bonus for those people that bought initially in the land sale and then held on to that land through 2 years of quite a rough period. So I'm not going to go into exactly what those details are, but it's basically a big thank you for those people saying, we get it. We know you've been able to play the game, but it's very different when you can't actually generate your fuel, which is why a lot of people initially bought their land plots. And so this is a way for us to say thank you for holding on. And it's nothing crazy, but it's still one of those really nice bonuses that comes through. And you don't need to, let's say, you don't need to do anything to receive it.
I like that. I think not needing to do anything is obviously a big win. Even when I put out that video about the missing ILV from staking and all that sort of stuff, there are a lot of people in my comments that said, thank you. I didn't realize this was a thing. And there are a lot of people that get nervous about this sort of stuff. And they're like, it could be a scam. I've got to check multiple sources. And I'm just happy I'm able to be one of those sources for people. And I obviously do my own research first. And just quickly, that question was from Dr. Gamer, and the one before was from Fizzo. Forgot to give them credit for those questions, so just wanted to shout that out. The next one is from Eric Cruz, where they're asking, the game clearly needs more alluvial diversity. So I half agree with that. But their question really is, when are the next alluvials coming out? And after that, how often do you think new sets will be introduced? Obviously, at the moment, it's hard to get 4 Inferno, for example. So when do you think that might be expanded from the 150?
I mean, look, to say the game clearly needs more diversity, I think is a little bit aggressive, given the fact that we've got 200 unique characters out of the gates, right? And yes, not all of them are playable right now, but certainly they will be for open beta. So, I mean, I don't know. That seems like a lot. That certainly was when Aaron and I were initially talking, he was like 50, maybe 100 if we're going to be able to do this, and it's now it's now turned into 200. So, like, I get it. People are always going to want more, and you want to see cool things like new creatures that are introduced that have different affinities. And I get that some people want 4 Inferno, but that's why there's things like the legendary augments where you can get to that 4th stage in and really start doing some damage. But yes, I get it. More will be coming, and we've already said that there will be more coming, and that's a big part of how we keep our economy sustainable. But we don't have a timeline on it. That's the first thing. Obviously, a bunch of them have already been concepted, and the whole bio of each of these things has already started to be documented. And but yeah, we're a ways away from it. The idea originally was to have them every year, but now I think we're probably likely to, instead of coming out with like a new set that has say 200 characters, I think we'll more likely come out with smaller sets that are say like 25 alluvials, maybe even a little bit more than that, and do that on a more regular basis.
I really don't think you need that many. I think even League of Legends helps keep it fresh quite well, and they release about a champion every 2 months, if I'm not mistaken. And even though that doesn't seem like much, with all the balancing and everything that goes on, the game really can change very rapidly when they do that. So I think really you could get away with or you could do really well with, let's say, 9 alluvials twice a year, sort of a thing. Like I really don't think you need that many, and it won't take long before you fill out all the synergies too. So that's really exciting. I think that's a good plan rather than doing one big 200 alluvial set or whatever it might be. So the next thing that I want to ask you is, in the roadmap, we can clearly see that Illuvium Beyond Wave 3 is slated for Q2 2024. Wave 2, after the IIP and everything, has been extended up until mid-January, I believe. That would leave a 2-month gap between Wave 2 and Wave 3 of Illuvium Beyond. Do you think that's necessary because of open beta and all the rest of it?
Honestly, no, right? And a lot of this has come from up through the community council. They obviously are the eyes and ears of the community, and it flows up to conversations that we have inside of the IMC. And I think earlier this year it was getting to a point where people were saying, let's not sell any more NFTs and any more waves until we get to open beta. And I think that is going to have a massive boost for Illuvitas in general. But at the same time, I'm worried that there is a certain group of people that, and it's still thousands of people that are out there that are willing to spend a lot of money on new waves, and we're kind of changing the product on the fly on them. So it doesn't really feel nice to do that. And I get that there are some people out there that are like, well, I don't have any more money to spend, so I'm missing out on the waves. But you've also got to think, well, if people who bought into wave 1 and now into wave 2, they're kind of getting addicted to this game of collecting, and maybe we lose a whole bunch of them. And if we lose a whole bunch of them, maybe we're going to lose a whole bunch of revenue with it. And so I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I accepted it. I was like, you know what? All good. If that's what the community wants, no problem. We can stop the waves. But I also am, very, very worried that those top 100 players, or even you could expand that out to say the top 500 players, are what are really bringing in that revenue. That's what has filled the safety pool, like so many different things. And then the second part of that is, if we pause wave 3, it actually means that we're pausing our third promotional partner. Now, this third one that we have lined up, I believe, has the power to bring in tens of thousands of people. It's a Web3 based partner, and they understand NFTs, they understand gaming, and I would be wanting to get that out as soon as possible for a multitude of reasons. But obviously, it's up to the community what they decide there. In terms of when it's ready, pretty much mid-Jan we'll be ready to go if the community wants to release it.
Yeah, personally, I thought the gap between wave 1 and wave 2 was torture. For me, I don't necessarily go and buy hundreds and hundreds in a day or anything like that, but every now and then I'm like, I'm going to buy 10 discs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and not being able to do that for 2 months, I did really think was bad. I mean, personally, I just didn't like it. Like, I mean, not necessarily a bad thing, but I definitely did not love that.
Imagine if all of the Pokemon cards just evaporated from existence for a couple of months. You'd be like, it's not a good feeling. Like, I've been there where you're like, God, I'll go to the next store, the next store, the next. It's like, can't get them. So, yeah, I don't know. It kind of doesn't feel nice, but, I see the other side of it.
Yeah, for sure. So the last one I've got here about the future of Illuvium 2024, and there are going to be other questions pertaining to that later, but this is the bulk of it. Is there an update coming for the Overworld Arena Zero, whatever else, the website, to make Illuvium multilingual? We have a lot of communities, especially in Japanese, German, French. I'm definitely missing one really big one. Portuguese. That are playing our games. I've seen them a lot in the Illuvium Inferno tournaments. Is there a plan to add that into the game?
100%, but it's a feature that is on our roadmap, but it's not going to be in open beta. Just being straight up, it's not. And trust me, like, I get it. I went on to a random person's stream. I can't even remember who it was, and they couldn't speak English. They were Spanish speaking, and I'm sitting there on Google Translate trying to like teach them what the buttons do, like how to actually play the game. And I think it would be much, much easier if the UI was multilingual. But these are features in the future.
Yeah, for sure. So that question came from Muffin Man. So big thank you for that. I have seen that discussion a lot in the community. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. It's a shame it won't be ready for open beta, but I mean, there are other things that are maybe more important right now. So after that, we will move on to the Illuvium Overworld. Some questions I really have pressing as well. So this one's gonna get asked pretty much every AMA. So I know you're always ready for it. The community has a variety of opinions regarding the costs in Illuvium. What price do you think it should be for a stage 1 travel, given you also need to pay for curing shards, maybe fusing alluvials, crafting things, and all that sort of stuff? All these things cost fuel. So do you think there's going to be a lot of things that cost a little bit of fuel, or maybe one thing that costs a lot, or like kind of where do you stand with costs in general for the overworld?
So it obviously fluctuates a little bit as well, right? Like it depends on our market, but I think it should always be affordable, right? And I believe that affordability point sits at around $100 to $200, right? Like it's similar to Hearthstone, similar to other games like that, but it doesn't matter. Like what I mean by that it doesn't matter is it's going to be decided by the people who buy fuel, right? Like if you're sitting there and you're like, well, I'm not going to buy the Hyperion and the Solon at that price because then it makes it too expensive to travel, the price is going to drop. And it's going to get to a point where someone's like, okay, now I'll go and travel because now I can go pick up a team for $80, let's call it, and yes, you might get a little bit luckier on one run versus another. And there's, you can't sit here and say it's going to be an exact price, but if we're talking about that average, it's going to be decided by the people who are playing the game. That's one thing that I think people miss entirely when we talk about costs in the overworld and how the meta economy actually works. It's a game in itself where you can sit there and be like, no, I'm not going to travel because they've done some marketing event and all of a sudden there's been a flood of players that have come in and now the price of travel is really high. I'm going to wait, right? And that's a game in itself. And so, it doesn't really matter what I say. It just, it's what the people want to pay.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And I feel the same. I think a lot of people are scared that it's going to take a long time to happen because with a hype cycle and or a bull run, the prices may stay overly inflated for a long time, which could have a certain effect on the overall economy.
I will say
in
though,
the end, yeah,
there is a ceiling, right? And like the previous, I think it was the Game Council one sub council decided that I don't think there should be a ceiling. Right now, I'm obviously on the crazy side of things, and I think free market, it should be able to fluctuate as much as it's going to. But I also again see the other side of the argument that having a completely free market could blow it out, so it's no longer accessible to mainstream players, which I don't think is the right play either. But so I actually don't mind having that ceiling, and yeah, that's kind of where I stand.
Yeah, I think the ceiling is good, and it'll be interesting to see where it all lands in the future. So the next thing is a bit more of a personal thing, but the Illuvium overworld still feels like the resources are spread out quite a bit. And I see this in my YouTube comments or my X posts all the time, where people are saying the overworld is boring, whatever you want to say. Like, blockchain aside, it does feel like it takes you a little while to get from resource to resource or alluvial to alluvial. What sort of new things are you adding into the overworld to make it more exciting?
So we're working on quite a few things. I'll just say that. Like the idea of the overworld staying empty forever is obviously not a thing. Now, the reason I'm being careful with that is I don't want to make people think that, oh, okay, this is going to be a completely different experience, because if the blockchain integration and the IMX stuff is done super quickly, you will literally be playing the same game that you're playing now, and there won't be any difference, right? That's in a perfect world. We just bust it out, right? And we just say public beta, we actually beat it by several months or whatever, right? But in reality, we are working on a bunch of things, and that's why staying in public beta is okay, because if those things start to happen once we've launched, I think it's okay, right? Like, one of the things that I'm realizing is it's still very, very early for blockchain-based gaming. And we saw it with the Team Liquid partnership. There was still so many people that the minute they see NFTs, they switch off, right? Now, there is obviously a percentage of people that don't and are curious and say, hey, I want to check this out. But there's also a massive amount of people that are like, nope, not ready for that. And we need to work within the confines of our reality, right? Like, if that is the case, then it actually gives us a little bit of time to get the game into a state where it's like, okay, this is going to be the next gen Monster Hunter, where you're running around, you're fighting alluvials, like all of that kind of stuff. But in the meantime, if we're slowly bringing those people in as they start to come around to blockchain gaming in general, we can be heavily marketing towards the people that are already in Web3. The market research that we've done suggests that there's somewhere between like 3 and 10 million people that we can target in the genres that we're in. And so we need to heavily lean into that and generate a whole bunch of revenues from that, and then use that. We've proven that we can build things, and we've proven that we can build things fast. We could turn the overworld into literally whatever the community wants, but we need to ensure that we're marketing to the right audience at the right time. And I think that's going to be a careful balancing act. That's kind of what I'm starting to realize. It's not like it's this moment where everyone's like, oh my God, blockchain gaming is fine now. I think it's going to be a lot slower burn. And yeah, again, the reason that I think that is seeing that real world feedback of a game that has awesome graphics. It's such similar gameplay to TFT, and we're marketing directly to that audience using a third party where it's like, hey, this guy thinks it's good and I love this guy, and I look at it and it looks good, and they're still like, no, I saw NFTs, I'm out of here, I don't even want to look at the game. That tells me that we're still very, very early here.
Yeah, I think it's hard. You definitely can't force it. Some people are just not going to take a second look at it, and we just have to build something that's quality, and eventually they will come. I think the one thing that I like to remember is that Axie Infinity did exist for, I don't know how long, at least 6 months before they became a big popular game. And that only happened when everyone came to crypto during a bull run, right? And I
It was
don't
like
know.
3 years, dude. It was,
Yeah.
no, seriously, they were, I think it was 2018. They had
Mm.
like 500 players or something like that. And then once it hit and it went crazy. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and like I don't know when a bull run is going to come. If it's the next 5 years or whatever, it doesn't matter. But when it eventually does come, it will bring a lot of people into all of the ecosystems, and I think preparing for that is the smart way to go. So the next question comes from the Wanderer, and he's wondering what the timeline is for the remaining 4 regions. I think in terms of keeping the overworld interesting, that's definitely going to be a big advantage.
yeah. So Tiger Boreal is the next in line. And then I believe it's the Halcyon Sea that we're working on. Tiger is in a much better state than the Halcyon Sea, but it's also going to take a long time to unlock these regions. So the overworld is meant to be a journey, and so the idea is that as people unlock them, we'll start introducing new regions. But yeah, again, I'm not going to sit here and say that, hey, on open beta you're going to have all 7 regions. It's just definitely not going to happen.
Yeah, I think I'm excited for Tiger. I think it's going to be cool. I'm excited to see what this unlocking mechanism is. I hope it's Leviathan related, but who knows? So after that, we'll move on to some of the marketing questions. And I'm trying to get it to show up. There we go. So firstly, this is a bit of a loaded question. In your opinion, who is Illuvium's core target market? Let's say for the next 3 years.
So I've always said, and this is one thing where I have stuck to this, right? That we need to market to both Web3 gamers, the ones that have seen the light, and mainstream, right? Now, where I was wrong, and this was a very, very hard pill to swallow, is what I was just talking about a moment ago, where I thought I told my team this. I've been on multiple AMAs saying that this is honestly what I believe. And that was that we would have that moment, and it would probably be around 2024, maybe 2025 at the latest, where people see the benefits of blockchain gaming. All of the crappy games get weeded out, and you start to see really, really awesome experiences become available. And that idea of ownership, like take all the other shit out, and you have just ownership. That idea I thought would be now, right? Or very, very soon. What I'm realizing is it's probably still 2 to 3 years away. And that is obviously a hard pill to swallow, but it's also totally fine, right? Like, and when I mean, when I say totally, when I say totally fine, I mean, if we understand that, we take that pill, and it hurts us emotionally, psychologically, but we go, okay, well, what do we have here then? And what we have is these 10 million people that have already seen the benefits of blockchain gaming. They do accept it, they do exist, and they're ready for really, really good gaming experiences. And I don't mean just the value extractors, right? I don't mean, hey, let's just build let's just incentivize people, and that's the only reason they play Illuvium, and we walk away. Absolutely not. I mean the people that are sitting in crypto, that used to play games all their life. Now they've turned into more of an investor, and they will really, really appreciate that there is good gaming experiences coming out. And so I think we need to market to Web3. I've always called that the low hanging fruit. But then at the same time, we need to use the fact that we're probably, like, realistically the first Web3 game that will start developing a proper esports system. And you'll see that with the multiple tournaments that we start putting on. We have all of that ILV there that was put aside for things like tournaments, which still at the current value is what, 100 million.
Mhm.
That has the ability to bring in the mainstream players that can appreciate that, yes, Arena is a complex game, but that's the type of game that they like. And you put on big prize money and you bring in all of these sorts of esports teams like TSM and Cloud9 and like Liquid. You start to get a following of mainstream people, and then the narrative can start changing where they start playing Overworld, they start playing Illuvium Zero, and any of the other gaming experiences that we built.
I think, without naming any names, I think one of the most interesting things did happen the other day. Something that really surprised me, but brought a really big smile across my face, is I was sorting prize distribution for one of the past Inferno tournaments, and one of the winners didn't have a crypto wallet of any kind, no crypto wallet at all.
So
And they got someone else in the community to help them set it all up. But it was really good to see that they just wanted to play a game, they wanted to play in a tournament, and they obviously wanted the prize or whatever, but they weren't really thinking about that side of things. They didn't even prepare by getting a crypto wallet ready because they had no interest in it. I thought that was really interesting to me, and I don't think they're the only person in those tournaments that doesn't have a crypto wallet or has not a big interest in crypto in general. So I think that bodes really well for some of the marketing things that have been done recently for Illuvium, and I'm looking forward to the future as well, knowing that those people are willing to play this game. So the last thing for the marketing section is, has the IMC called upon the expertise of any of the community members yet? For anyone who's unaware, Governance V3 added a committee system where a bunch of people from the broader Web3 and Web2 space were appointed as committee members for the DAO. So have we used any of them yet?
Yeah, so there was a lot of discussion internally about leaderboards and how we should position them, how many people should be included in the leaderboards. Other people that have or committee members that have previously advised other Web3 games where they've really fine tuned their incentives programs, and so yes, but in the new year, I've said that I'm going to work with Jeremy to get them, or a lot of them already are in Discord, but we're going to have dedicated groups for the committee that they're in. It, to be honest, probably should have already been done, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to get done. And so I think once we have those dedicated groups set up in Discord where they're accessible from by the IMC members, we're going to see a lot more discussion back and forth from those people, because what we've set up there is it's not a new concept in Web 2, but in Web 3 people don't really set that sort of advisory structure up, and I think it can be extremely powerful for us, and we just need to make sure that we have the right systems in place where we can extract as much value out of these smart thinkers as possible.
Yeah, I think I'm glad to hear that you guys have talked to them, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the leaderboard turns out like. So, at least the leaderboard rewards, right? The leaderboard actually looks quite good. I like it. So now we'll move on to the Illuvium Arena. So, what are your genuine thoughts, or the team's current feelings towards where the product sits right now for the Illuvium Arena? Like, do you think the game is really good? Do you think it needs a lot more balance? Where's your head at?
So I think the first thing that everyone agrees on is getting a tutorial in, right? Like having some sort of onboarding process where, and I think it's going to be a combination. I think you won't be chucked straight into ranked matches where you're playing someone that's had 100, 200, 300 matches. You're either going to have to play someone else that's in this unranked status and then meet some minimum criteria. Once you fit that, then you go into the ranked pool. I think that stops a lot of the I would say disappointment, right? Where you've downloaded a new game, you're excited, you get in there, and you get belted the first 3 games that you play, and you're like, okay, this is, that wasn't a great experience. And I think when you couple that with the lack of tutorials that we have, and I don't mean like go onto YouTube and watch this tutorial. That's not real. That's pretty cumbersome experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, an in-game thing where it's like, position your ranger, and it's like, put out your first alluvial and add a weapon to your ranger, add armor to your ranger, like that step-by-step process, making that a mandatory thing that you need to do before you play a ranked game, I think will familiarize people in a way that they're not getting right now, and all of a sudden it will go from being super complex to a lot more digestible. So
I think.
Yeah.
I can't really think of a way to really solve that. Illuvium is quite a complex game, but really, in my opinion, the team builder is so integral to Illuvium that it's kind of hard for that reason alone. But I'm looking forward to seeing in-game tutorials, especially for team building.
That's the other thing. The team builder is outside of the client. It's ridiculous, right? Like and again, these are the shortcuts where people are like, oh, you just want to make everything perfect. It's like, do you think we want people to have to go to another application that's outside of the client that they're in, build a team in there, then go back to the client? Like, that is a terrible experience. But they're the types of shortcuts that we decided to make in order to actually get the arena out as soon as possible. And so, things like that are a given where we absolutely want to make that experience better.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to when that's in the client. But even me personally, when I'm away from home, I like using the team builder on my phone and stuff to try to make some new teams and stuff like that. So there are a lot of changes that the community has been talking about over and over again in the community. I wonder if there are any you're in favor of. Are there any like big sweeping changes you'd like to make to the rules of the arena that you think would be good?
Big sweeping changes, no, right? Like I love the game, right? Now, obviously I'm biased, but at the same time, I think a lot of people have seen me play the Overworld or play survival mode, and then the excitement sort of wears off, and I'm like, I would only be playing this if I liked it. I play an arena game. I think I've played an arena game every single day since it's come out, some days for 10 hours straight, right? Like to the point where it's like, you start telling your wife, nah, it's work, but it's really not work, and you're actually addicted. So I love the game. I think it's awesome. But I do accept that it's a very high skill ceiling. It's not easy to understand immediately. And so things like what we just spoke about, tutorials, improving the UI so you can understand affinities better and how synergies work and classes and stuff like that, like making it a much better experience like that, making it more balanced as well. I don't like the idea that you can go into a match and depending on what your opponent's got down, you really only need to bring one team. I think the point that we need to get to is you have your A team, and then if you're getting purely countered by your opponent, then you're able to switch to your B team. And what that means is you can have less augments that work for your A team, less armor and weapons that work for your A team. So you start to lose a little bit of power because if you come up against the perfect counter to your team, then you're screwed, right? So you have to pivot. And I think right now those A teams are still too strong. And what's happening is people are like just rushing it forward with a single comp, and they make it through. So I guess, but again, it's very, very early days. So they're the things that I would like to see.
I share pretty much the same sentiment. Even I've been trying to build like B and C teams into my comp, but they still can't beat everything, or at least they can't hold up against certain things anyways. And so then you have a harder time against the things you already did match up well against because you got less augments and stuff like that. And so it overall becomes a lot harder. So an interesting question came from TSG just then, where he wants to know your top three favorite things about Arena and the top three things you think need to be improved.
So I like the speed of which you can play a match. I think the average time is 9 minutes or something like that. Like that feels good. You can get in and out pretty quickly. Like when I play TFT, it normally comes out at around 30 minutes, which is obviously a larger investment. I like the different. I like how much positioning matters. Things like moving a single unit to the different sides so it doesn't get attacked by rogues and stuff like that. Like that, on top of all of the other strategic things that you need to do in order to win, makes it quite cool. And then I also like the diversity of the characters, right? Like it feels like a cool game to watch. And I know you don't necessarily play from like a zoomed in lens, but when I do and I go around all the alluvials, I'm like, this is a cool game. And that kind of makes me want to play Overworld more when I see them. And I'm like, fuck, I really want to capture these things. And so I would say they're three of the big ones. What do I not like about Arena? I don't like that you can't actually, that you have to sell your unit in order to switch which one you're bonded with. That's like a massive, massive pet hate for me. I don't like that there is not much information in the UI about how synergies actually work and which synergies better counter others. And I mean, like that's pretty much it. The other stuff we've covered, like more tutorial like stuff and balancing and stuff like that. But overall, like I'm playing an hour or 2 hours a day, and no one's forcing me to do that. I'm not like it's just I like going back to my computer and seeing where I can get. And I got ranked in platinum. I was there for about 4 minutes, but I'm back now into gold with this new patch. And so it makes me go like, shit, I need to get back up there. So we've definitely got something there for the people that enjoy auto battlers, but it's been out for 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Like there's so many new quality of life features that are coming.
I'll give you one thing. I'll give you my pet hate. The Indomitable Augment. Just delete it. Just delete it right now. I can't even anymore. It feels like such a cop out. It's like, you want to play full Invoker team? Well, they're not very defensive, but you can make them invincible for a few seconds.
Yeah.
Absurd. So the next one comes from Greta, where they're asking, do you think there needs to be incentives to play the arena to keep the player economy at a high volume, or the overall economy and like the overworld and stuff as well? Like, do you think there needs to be like, you want to play the game because you can earn in the arena? Do you think that needs to be a factor to get a lot of people playing the game?
Look, I don't think it's a need, right? I think it's a smart thing for us to do to incentivize. And the reason I think that is because I believe we have a great product. I believe if you like auto battlers or you like TCGs and you're into crypto and you stumble upon Illuvium, you're going to enjoy the game. Right now, I would say it would be a much, much, much better experience if all of those things, like being in the unranked mode to start off with, you're forced to play a tutorial. Like if you got to that stage where you've like, call it played 20 games and if you could start off there and then start being competitive, then I would say let's get as many people into the game as possible with early incentives, because then they'll get hooked, right? Like I'm hooked, And that's what every good incentivization program in the world does. Look at what PayPal did. They literally sent you $10 of money and said, you can now send another friend $10 of money. And someone can look at that and be like, ooh, that's a bit of a Ponzi. They're just sending a whole bunch of money and it's costing them millions of dollars. But they weren't. They knew that when someone went and got onboarded and they tried out the product, they were going to recuperate that $10 in fees very, very quickly, because someone was like, whoa, this is actually like magic. I can send this over to this person, quickly gets to them. Uber did a similar thing where they were giving out free rides to start off with. You get in there, you're like, I'm never going back to a taxi again. That's the way that I'm looking at incentives, right? It gets people in. If you have a shithouse product and there's no stickiness there, then no, right? I think that's just going to be a constant spiral of paying and paying and paying to get people in. You're much, much better off making the product sticky first, or getting that product market fit, which again, I know that there are a bunch of things that we're looking at implementing quickly to get it much, much stickier. But I still think that we have a huge amount of ILVs and of ILV and incentives that are put aside. It's not going to hurt us to start getting players into the system now, even if less of those people are going to stick now versus say in 3 months.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think of it. And yeah, lifetime value, customer value, or whatever, is a really important metric. And I'm glad. Yeah, I think we should definitely be thinking about it that way. So next, we'll move on to Illuvium Zero, and this is a question I've seen float around every now and then. This comes from Stompy. When might multiplayer features such as player versus player or co-op or whatever come to Illuvium Zero in the future?
Honestly, not for a while. Right now, I know that what we should be talking about, or really highlighting, is if you're an Illuvium Zero player, there is going to be a reward that you're getting, right? And I'm being a little bit facetious here, but I do understand that Illuvium Zero, or let's call them landholders, are a little bit frustrated, right? Like I definitely can see that they are. And I think a lot of that frustration will be alleviated by fuel generation and just their ability to earn. And they were looking at it like an asset where they can buy it. And over time, if the game is successful, they're going to be able to recoup some of their investment. And that hasn't been made available to them. But at the same time, we need to get there first before we start saying, okay, now let's build Clash of Clans, which in the future we definitely can do, but we need to get to that point where we're allowing them to start generating revenue. And then, like all of the, if you're sort of seeing the narrative of what I'm going with here, the whole idea is for us to get to that point where we're generating a bunch of revenue, where we can build that war chest, and then we can build anything, right? Like literally we can build anything. And that, I think, is the big key. Is you can go, there was that question that came up, why isn't anyone bullish on Illuvium, right? And the thing there is, you could sell a narrative. You can easily sell a narrative of this game is going to change the world. But once it's actually live and it's real and you've got actual players, that's where it's a little bit tough to start saying, you know what, we're going to go out and change the world. And we're not saying we're going to do that, but what the thing that people aren't realizing, and obviously there are thousands of people that are bullish on Illuvium, but I get what your comment meant, right? Like I get where you were coming from. And what people need to understand is that once we open the gates and we start generating a ton of revenue and we build that war chest, we can build anything. And the difference between us and the 5,000 studios that haven't released a game yet is we've proven it. And we've proven it in multiple genres, in multiple platforms. And so that would be the thing. That's why you can't sleep on a game like Axie, is because they've got a ton of money and they've proven that they can build a game, even though it's not as good as the experiences that I'm talking about will come out in the next few years. They can get better, and they've got the money to do it. And that's what those larger market cap tokens have proven, and that's where you can't really bet against them, because you're betting on hope, and maybe that hope pays off, but it's a lot riskier than a team that's already built things and shipped things.
You get into a territory that's been one of my pet peeves recently, with everyone shilling the tokens with $1 market cap. Anyways,
Crypto, welcome to the show.
So the next thing is, what new features are going to come to Illuvium Zero besides mega cities and the Podarium? Is there anything else that might be coming, or not in the foreseeable future?
There's been tons of stuff that the community has suggested. There's been tons of stuff internally that that the team has suggested. We've got a really, really good group that's working on Illuvium Zero now, and I feel like they've got a grasp of it. They understand the law. They understand its place in the ecosystem. But I'm not going to sit here and say that there's 10 new features coming out for Illuvium Zero. I'm just saying we're working as fast as we can to get to that point where they can do what land was supposed to do, and that's generate fuel.
Yep, sounds good to me. So after that, we'll move on to Illuvium Beyond. I've only got one question for this, or at least I had more, but I think they've all been answered by now. But I wanted to ask, because personally, I think it's actually in a really good place right now. But do you think the pricing or the structure or anything will need a change for discs as we head into wave 3 for Illuvium Beyond?
I certainly hope not.
Do you think it's in a good place?
Yeah, I do. I didn't like I've made this abundantly clear. I didn't like the change. I know you and I were talking a lot. We both didn't like the change. We thought that wave 1 was fine. Don't fix something that isn't broken. We were the minority in that situation, and so that's how it works. The DAO voted to change it, and I don't think that was a good move. But I think now, with the successful promotional launch of Team Liquid and how that was priced and where that was positioned, I think we're okay.
I think we're in the minority on that one, but after we've seen this wave play out and things like that, even though I still think it would have been better to not change the price at that time. I definitely think it's in a really good place now. I definitely wouldn't want to change it again, but I think it was a net positive, at least in the long term. So after that, we'll move on to blockchain related topics. So we know blueprints are coming on January 3rd. How is the rest of the blockchain development actually going for Overworld in particular?
So yeah, I mean that's the big one, right? We need to be able to read a wallet that says you've gone and captured these alluvials, you've got these items, and you can then go and play them in Arena. And I think one common misconception of that is, or certainly what I get asked a lot is, what have the blockchain team been doing over the last 2 years? And I think one thing that I'd like to clear up is this integration is heavily being built by backend, right? Our backend engineers, not so much the blockchain engineers. Of course, there's blockchain elements to it, but it's very much a backend development process. And engineers in the backend, architects, they've honestly been our Achilles heel. We've been able to hire unbelievably good people across every single department, and we've had really good back-end engineers. We've just only had a few of them. And so over the past 4 or 5 months, Itamar and Johnny and some of the other guys have done an extremely good job. Luke, one of our recruiters, has done an extremely good job at finding new back-end engineers. And that's what's putting us into a position where we're hopeful that once that we've got 4 new people starting, or 2 have already started, 2 more are starting in the new year. We're hoping with that boost, we're literally at 10 back-end engineers now, that we will be able to smash out this blockchain integration super, super quickly. And with that, we're also talking about the IMX passport integration. And so if we can get those 2 elements done quickly, then again, we open the floodgates. And that's why we're saying it, depending on testing and whatever, it might be Q2, but we are going to be doing absolutely everything in our power to make it Q1. But it's up in the air.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's been expanding over time. And I know it's in the COVID market, especially, and everything else, I know it has not been easy to hire people with that skill set or people like that in general. So I'm just glad that we're getting there, and I'm excited for the future of the blockchain development. So there is another discussion going on. I think Josh Heath actually kicked this one off, where the circulating SILV2 could greatly slow down the potential of future revenue. So we've talked a bit about recently about filling up the war chest when the Overworld comes out and things like that. But if the token price appreciates from the game being good or whatever else, and then the SILV2 buying pressure is going to be significantly higher. We're talking potentially in the 5 to 10 million range, maybe even higher than that. Do you think that's going to impact our ability to generate revenue in a meaningful way, or what do you think we should do about that?
Yeah, I do, but it was something that was known, right? And I think a lot of people have said to me, let's make SILV2 expire, and even crazier stuff. Let's just delete it, and like you can't, right? Like, you can't say to someone, I think that's going to give us bigger issues in the future. You can't say to someone, hey, don't take your ILV staking rewards, take SILV2, and then have someone say, you got to spend it in a month, right? Like, we got the benefit of people taking SILV2 instead of ILV. That's lowered the circulating supply, which has increased the price of ILV. You can't then just walk that back and say, I mean, look, I don't want to say can't, because it's a DAO and I've seen some pretty crazy things, but I would not be in favor of that. No, I think it's something that we need to accept, that there is SILV2 out there and circulating. But at the same time, why do we get sales in ETH of things like Illuvitas if people can just go and buy SILV2, right? Like, it's either going to make the price of SILV2 and ILV get to parity very, very quickly, and there won't be that arbitrage play there, because there'll be so much demand on SILV2 that people will literally start using it for its purpose. And then once it goes out of existence, it's gone, right? Like, we don't have any more people that are using it. And so, yes, it might hinder revenues to start off with, but I also don't think it's going to be anywhere near as impactful as what people are making it out.
So, yeah, so thank you for all that. So we've really quickly got some questions that TSG has been collecting for me from the chat while we've been having this conversation. I've been trying to be really zoned in on the convo, so I haven't read chat a whole lot. But let's start off with one here that I thought was really interesting. And I've seen Crystal ask this many times before. If you could start over with Illuvium tomorrow, would you still use the Dow structure?
Yes. Yes, I would. I don't think, as much as I joke about it and stuff like that, and say, it gives me headaches and stuff like that, I think the benefits greatly outweigh the negatives. And, there certainly are negatives. It was a difficult time when we broke things up, and I think governance V2 made it almost too hard to coordinate people, and we had situations where the team was getting frustrated, the people in those committees were getting frustrated. And it's not to say that anyone in those committees was doing a bad job. I just think it was a bad structure, right? And I think now that we have governance V3, I think we're at a really, really good balance. I think it's better than governance V1, the first version, and I think it's better than the second version. and I think it's a lot more streamlined, and we can just get stuff done. So yes, and it's a big part of this, and I think once that penny drops and people start realizing that blockchain gaming gives power back to the people, that is a really cool concept. And it might, sometimes you got to question yourself and go, like, are we idiots here? Like, is a decentralized game even cool? And you do in a bear market, you really do. You're like, this is nonsense. Like, why would we have done this? It's made it so much harder. But I always go back to the idea of like, you don't have power and agency to change anything when you're dealing with centralized entities in mainstream that dictate to you what is going to happen, when it's going to happen, and how it's going to happen. That is I believe is going to be an old way of doing things, and I think the new way, and not just in gaming, obviously, right, across so many different areas, there's going to be DAO structures which are just a much better experience.
Yeah, I've personally thought that our voices have been heard quite well, and GovV2, although I actually really like the structure in many ways, it did get a bit intense and a bit messy at times, but I think it hit a bit of a stride, and I think GovV3 is working really well so far, talking from the inside at least. And so the next question I've got on my list is from Het Bunhey. What are the top 3 ideas the team have taken on board from the community?
Just in general?
Yeah, I mean, broadly, let's talk about the past 2 years. Is there anything crazy that stands out in your mind?
Oh, God. So the first one would have been not allowing VCs and the team into yield farming with locked tokens. I think that made the distribution of the token way more decentralized. Another one would be the introduction of Illuvium Zero, to have a game where basically you've got an economy that becomes a free market. Like, I know that a lot of people sit there and be like, that was so dumb for us to vote in to add an additional game to this. We would have gotten to market a lot sooner. It's actually not the case. The Illuvium Zero team has very much been siloed. They're building it on a different platform with a different engine. And so I think once people see how cool the idea of buying the different fuel types will be, and how it fluctuates pricing and all of that kind of stuff, I think that's going to be an awesome decision. So that would have been one. I don't know what else. There's been like 55 governance proposals. Another one that I liked was the community blocking me from doing a collaboration with, let's say, a bad actor. I think we were able to spin that in a very positive light, and it actually it highlighted the power of DAOs, and yeah, that was a big win for us.
Yeah, for sure. I really like those ones. So the next question I've got here is actually a really good one from Tallulah. I'm not sure if you've seen much of this, but there have been a lot of discussions recently regarding 5% of in-game revenues goes to landholders. Now, a lot of people consider Illuvium Beyond to be a game, and then you also have Illuvium Zero you need to consider. So where is your head at in regards to like people purchasing speed ups in Illuvium Zero? Is 5% of that going to go to landholders and discs and things as well?
100%. So anything that any in-game. So let's just make. So where I sit on this topic is that we missed it. We were trying to build it so quickly. We didn't think until it was already done. And I remember it was suggested like 8 weeks in by a community member. I can't remember who it was, but someone was like, hang on a second, we've just gone and generated like millions of dollars of revenue. aren't we meant to get 5% of that? And I got asked like 50 times in the space of like 2 days, and I was like, shit, yeah, that probably should have been a thing. The reason it didn't is it wasn't originally intended to be a game. It was literally meant to just be a PFP project. Then Roger got a hold of it, and Aaron and a bunch of the game designers, and they wanted to start building it into something that is that may even literally become a game in the future. I would say right now it's a collection game, but again, it's a bit blurry there, right? Like it's a game, and so therefore I think yes, it makes sense that it should receive it, but I think because it's gone so long now, it would require a proposal to go through governance, and I think I would vote yes on that proposal, just purely because it is a game. I think that would have been a nice win for the landholders as well. Now, again, you know, it's not going to be a crazy amount. I can't remember who it was. I think Lalelahel was the one who worked it out for them and was like, hey, you would have received like 17 cents. And so like, do you really want that? Or do you know what I mean? So I don't know, but there's, it feels like it's the right thing.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting, that's fair enough. I think I'd like to see it be purchasable with fuel and then just go from there. But I don't know how long that would take to do and things like that. So I definitely think an intermediate and elegant solution in the intermediate would be quite good as well. So I've got one more question for you before we wrap this up. If you personally, I'm not talking about the DAO, the team, anyone else, if you personally had to pick the next game that Illuvium would add to the universe, what would it be?
It's a tough one, right? Because I think the right move is another smaller style game that we can get out quite quickly. I like the idea of a sort of Mario Kart version of a racer. I think we can really assimilate the characters over, and it'll be quite a fun experience. It'll be more cartoony. Like now, I'm not even talking from like a revenue standpoint. I'm just talking about like it would be cool. I own this Alluvial. I caught it in the Overworld. Now it's turned into this, this racing card and stuff like that. There's a lot of art that's involved with that though as well, depending on how deep we want to go, right? Like, does your Alluvial change the look of the cart, or is it just sitting inside of the cart that's blue because you've got a squiz or whatever, you know what I mean? So, but then the other side of me is like, just give me a goddamn MOBA, right? Like, I want, like, obviously all things considered, if you zoomed out 10 years, what I think Illuvium will eventuate to is a MOBA or an MMO, and it's this next gen experience where you've got all of these different games that are all interconnected, and that becomes your next MMO. But that's not the next game that I think we should build. You know what I mean? So I guess I've answered it in two parts.
Yeah, for sure. So no, that's great. I think a racer would be super fun. I think that would be a lot harder to build than you're saying a small game. But I think a MOBA, personally, I love RTS games, so I'd love to see an RTS. MOBAs were originally built off the back of an RTS, so I feel like either way you could get both out in tandem in some sense, in a way. So I think that would be exciting for Illuvium. So anyways, thank you for all your time today. Thank you so much for coming on the channel and having a chat with me about the future of Illuvium. And Q1 would be a dream. I mean, like, I would be so over the moon. It would be so exciting. Is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap it up?
No, man, just enjoy your New Year's. I really appreciate you doing this in the holidays. I think you do an awesome job getting just curating the questions from the community, and I've said that for a few years now, that I really appreciate what you do for for everyone. And I know, we're in the middle of holidays and stuff like that, so you didn't have to do this. But yeah, really appreciate you, really appreciate the community. All I'll say is just get ready for 2024. It's going to be absolutely massive.
I really appreciate it. So just last thing, chat, before we wrap up, Illuvium Inferno, I just opened it up to 128 players. If you have not registered, go and register. It's going to be a lot of fun. So